Behind the facade of the American dream lie numerous social issues. In the U.S., there's a rise in poverty and inequality, which has led not only to an increase in the number of homeless people on the streets, but also to a surge in drug addiction and crime. Today, I'm going to tell you all about the homelessness crisis in the U.S. Are you ready to dive into the ocean of hopelessness? Then let's go. By the end of 2024, the Biden administration reported that the homelessness rate in the United States reached the highest level recorded since the federal government began keeping official statistics about 2 decades ago. This situation is linked to the sharp rise in rent prices, a lack of affordable housing, and an influx of migrants seeking refuge at the border between the U.S. and Mexico. According to data, the total number of homeless reached 772,000, an 18% increase from the previous year. Among them, over 80,000 families with kids recorded, with their numbers increasing by 39% from 2023. This is due to higher rents, fewer affordable homes, and more migrants. Among them, over 80,000 families with children were recorded, the number of which increased by 39% compared to 2023 figures. The main reason for the current situation is attributed to the rise in rental prices, the lack of affordable living alternatives, and the influx of migrants. At the beginning of January, shelter systems in major cities like New York, Denver, and Chicago became overwhelmed due to the large number of incoming refugees. On top of that, the homelessness problem has worsened over the past few decades due to a significant increase in rental costs, which have risen 1.5 times faster than people's incomes. Despite the high level of new housing construction, the demand for affordable apartments remains unmet. Meanwhile, the number of homeless veterans has decreased by 8% compared to 2023, and by more than 55% since 2010. By mid-September 2024, the number of homeless people in the country reached 653,000. By this point, around 550,000 people were living on the streets. The history of homelessness in America began long before the founding of the modern United States. The first colonies, the precursors to the future great power, were ethically shaped by those who found themselves outside of society. In England, vagrancy was punished with harsh measures, including imprisonment or being sent to hard labor. However, the new light opened up endless horizons for such people. They could either work for the benefit of the British Crown or venture into uncharted territories. It's unclear how much this affected American vagrancy culture. Such people have been in North America since early European exploration. However, one thing is clear. Such people have existed in North America since the earliest stages of its exploration by Europeans. During the colonization period, the population was relatively small, especially in the Western territories where European presence was virtually non-existent. But after gaining independence and declaring an open-door policy, the situation changed dramatically. American cities grew rapidly, uninhabited territories became populated, railroads were built, providing regular connections. People gained the ability to move freely across the country, often chasing dreams of wealth that flared up during gold rushes. Many left their homes and set out in search of fortune, leaving all their belongings behind in hopes of starting a new life. However, not everyone was lucky. Many left their homes and set out in search of fortune, leaving all their belongings behind in hopes of starting a new life. But not everyone was lucky. Those who failed to get rich found themselves in a desperate situation. They didn't even have enough money to get back home. That's how the first ghost towns came to be, populated by those who were left homeless and without hope for a better future. These events were just the beginning of the massive influx of homeless people that hit the country after the devastating Civil War. From 1861 to 1865. In those years, 617,000 people lost their lives, more than the United States lost in all subsequent conflicts combined. If you multiply that number by 3, you'll get an approximate count of the wounded and disabled. Times were tough, with no social programs in sight, just plenty of mutual hatred. A man who lost his ability to work often ended up on the streets and soon died, and his family would follow him there. The next major surge in homelessness occurred during the Great Depression. In the 1930s, epidemics of poverty, hunger, and homelessness swept across the country. 122 million Americans, over 2 million ended up on the streets. Some wandered the country, while others built shantytowns, nicknamed Hoovervilles, after then-President Herbert Hoover. His successor, Franklin Roosevelt, managed to stabilize the situation, and after World War II, the U.S. became one of the leading world powers. However, the problem of homelessness continued to be a pressing issue. In 1963, another event occurred that increased the number of homeless people. A law was passed regarding the public mental health system, changing the approaches to treating the mentally ill. Patients who had been in long-term inpatient care were discharged from state institutions and transferred to specialized group homes. It was planned that they would be properly monitored, but the funding for these programs turned out to be insufficient. In the end, the patients just couldn't adapt to life in society and ended up on the streets. In the 1980s, the country faced yet another economic crisis. The Cold War drained the state's resources, unemployment rose, and homelessness became a chronic issue. The affordable housing program was cut by 4 times, and millions of workers without their own homes lost the chance to buy one, even on credit. Ronald Reagan signed the McKinney-Vento Act, which led to the opening of thousands of shelters, free cafeterias, and other assistance services across the country. However, the number of homeless people continued to rise, as the measures proposed only addressed the symptoms of the problem, not its root causes. And finally, the mortgage crisis of 2008 led to tens of thousands of people being evicted from their homes. Entire neighborhoods, and sometimes even cities, were abandoned. A prime example of this is Detroit, where the population has shrunk by almost 2/3, the unemployment rate has exceeded 23%, and 1 in 3 residents has fallen below the poverty line. I described these and other social phenomena in my Telegram channel Unusual America, in which I scare the most incredible stories from life in the USA and share important news. Come on in, read, and subscribe. The actual picture of homelessness in the US, despite its apparent accuracy, has many nuances and exceptions, making it similar to comparable data in other countries around the world. American statistics distinguish different categories of homeless people, some of which may not be included in official reports, leading to obvious discrepancies. For example, in New York City, thousands of children regularly find themselves without a roof over their heads, but they aren't counted in the overall statistics. Across the country, there are about 1 million such children, meaning roughly 1 in every 50 kids faces the issue of homelessness. The reasons vary. Some are fleeing from domestic violence, others are coming from shelters, and some see a certain romance in it or suffer from mental disorders. Temporary homeless are briefly on streets, max 3 times yearly. 4th time makes them chronically homeless. Only starting from the 4th instance within a year are they officially classified as chronically homeless and included in the statistics. So, a person who is temporarily staying with friends, sleeping in parks, or on the subway is technically not considered fully homeless. In addition to this, there is a significant number of unregistered homeless people who avoid contact with authorities, don't use shelter services, and don't make it into official statistics. According to unofficial estimates, the actual number of homeless people could reach 3 million, which is about 1% of the total U.S. population, or 1 in every 100 residents. The main cause of homelessness is poverty. Many people in the U.S. earn less than $16,000 a year, which makes it impossible for them to rent a place even in the area where they work, let alone buy their own home. The issue of social housing is struggling to keep up with the ever-growing demand, so shelters and temporary housing are filled not just with marginalized individuals, but also with regular folks who have jobs. Among other common causes of homelessness, mental illness and drug addiction stand out. In the U.S., nearly half of the world's drug trade is consumed, and over 30 million people in the country regularly use various types of drugs. This kind of mass consumption, typical of American society, has been around for about half a century. This has a significant impact on people's mental health. Today, 52 million Americans have various forms of mental illness. Homelessness has many causes. Some choose it. Others reject government. In some cases, people become homeless due to their political or ideological beliefs, consciously choosing this way of life. Some people aim to completely cut off any contact with government structures and refuse to use money, viewing it as a relic of capitalist society. Others join the urban survivalist movement, preparing for various emergencies and disasters. The third finds its place in the poorest neighborhoods, which have been dubbed hobogemia. The name comes from the words hobo, a working immigrant, and bohemia, bohemia. These areas attract people looking for freedom from social norms and restrictions. Orphan children hold a special place in this discussion. According to surveys of mayors from troubled cities, about 20% of orphans leave their foster homes after they turn 18. In California, often referred to as the most homeless state, over 46% of the homeless are people under 21, mostly white Americans. At the same time, the poverty rate among black people is higher. Strong family ties likely play a role here, with more children in the family and, as a result, more relatives who can provide support. If your social status is all good and you got into a car accident in America, and you don't know what to do next, where to turn for help? Where can I find a competent lawyer? How to get compensation if you don't have insurance? The company Accident America helped secure $21 million in compensation for its clients. Here, you'll definitely get answers to all your questions. Link in the description. Geographical location plays a crucial role in the survival conditions of the homeless. In the northern states, winters can be brutal, and you just can't survive out on the streets. That's why the subways in Chicago or New York become temporary shelters for thousands of homeless people. Some occupy abandoned buildings that have been left behind by their former owners. This situation is especially pronounced in cities that have been hit hard by economic downturns. For example, in Detroit, entire neighborhoods are occupied by the homeless and criminal elements hiding from the law. In these areas, there are often no jobs or public services. The lack of heating forces residents to warm themselves by an open fire, which often leads to fires. After that, the homeless just move to the next relatively livable house. In the South, the situation looks different. The milder climate allows people to live outdoors all year round. All you need is a tent, and you have some kind of roof over your head. In California alone, there are over 100,000 of these tent campers, which has led to the formation of entire tent camps. When people come together, they feel more secure. They form shared budgets that can be used to improve living conditions or for emergency medical assistance. However, these camps are hard to ignore, unlike the individuals hiding out in the subway. Thanks to these camps, the homeless are drawing attention to their issue, clearly showcasing the scale of the problem. Most of the initiatives to help the homeless come from individuals, religious organizations, and commercial charities. In recent years, several states have seen the emergence of small villages designed exclusively for the homeless. They have inspiring names like Hope Village in Oregon or Eden Village in Washington. The housing in these villages is modest, but it comes with the necessary amenities and provides a roof over your head. To live there, you need to follow some simple rules. Give up using drugs and alcohol, find a job to pay for utilities, or work within the village, in exchange for housing and food. Although there are still only a few such villages, they are rarely 100% full. The reason is that people who have lived on the streets for several years become accustomed to this way of life and often lose the ability to return to normal social life. In real life, the attitude of Americans towards trailers is mixed. In these mobile homes, people live for years, sometimes even decades, often crowded with families. People live in these mobile homes for years, sometimes decades, with entire families living together. They basically have two main options: living under a bridge in the city or living in a trailer park. There's no property tax in this case since a trailer is considered a vehicle, not real estate. However, trailer parks aren't just abandoned plots of land, and you have to pay rent for your spot. Sometimes the amounts are small, and the owners barely pay attention to them. A lot more money goes towards regularly replacing gas cylinders and replenishing supplies of drinking water. Cleaning the porta potty isn't cheap either, but these expenses help maintain at least some semblance of a normal life. Here, people are forced to make do in any way they can, including using dishonest methods. That's why walks through trailer parks are not welcome for outsiders. The risk of becoming a victim of theft or witnessing disturbances is quite high. It is important to emphasize that by paying rent, residents of such parks do not have any rights to the land they occupy. Landowners have the right to set any rules they want, including imposing a curfew, banning pets, and regulating noise levels. As for the interior layout of the trailer, it typically includes a tiny kitchen, a bedroom, and a dining area, often combined with the kitchen. It's not uncommon for sleeping areas to be located on the second level, which is necessary for saving space. There are also tiny but functional shower stalls and toilets. People gradually get used to such conditions. Life in a trailer isn't easy, but for those who have no other place to live, it becomes a real lifesaver. The United States has two different faces. One belongs to the rich, well-groomed, tanned, with perfect features and a sparkling smile. The other face belongs to the poor, with a tired gaze looking down, searching for spare change. There are many homeless shelters open across the country, but they are constantly overcrowded, leading to the emergence of tent cities. Despite numerous government initiatives aimed at supporting the poor, their number continues to increase every year. That's all for today. See you soon.